For the next 2 weeks, the First Army continued to advance, fighting through the almost impregnable wall of closely spaced German towns which had been skillfully fortified and bitterly defended. Towns like this one, Hamich, which the 1st Division captured on 20th November and from which it pressed onward. On the march to the Ruhr, these troops moved ahead to punch their way through the next ring of towns blocking their path to the Ruhr. Food and ammunition kept rolling forward despite the handicap of weather. While the main effort progressed in the Stolberg-Eschweiler area, the 4th and 8th Infantry Divisions renewed the previous offensive in the Hürtgen Forest. On the northern fringe, the 4th Division pushed off on 16th November. With field guns supporting the action, this second attempt to clear the Hürtgen Forest got underway. Our men advancing through the woods were sometimes scattered by enemy fire, but they kept on going, inching their way forward. Sometimes they were pinned down, but they crawled ahead. Casualties were heavy in all parts of the forest, but they received prompt attention from our ever-vigilant medical corps. Communications and heavy armor were brought up to support the infantry further up the hill. The advance continued successfully as the 4th Division drove on towards its objective, the town of Großhau, where it crushed the last German resistance on 28th November. With continuous artillery support, this division was able to fulfill its assignment in the Hürtgen Forest campaign. The 8th Division joined the action by attacking objectives in the heart of the forest. Supported by one combat command of the 5th Armored Division, it launched its drive on the morning of 26th November with a rocket barrage. The rockets were firing at enemy positions in Kleinhau. It was estimated in the field that one such battery equaled the light artillery power of 5 divisions. Air support came the following day, when fighter bombers flew more than 1,000 sorties over the area. Then the artillery took over, concentrating on the target at close range, and 2 days later, Kleinhau was captured. Hürtgen II was finally cleared and secured late in November. One of the major objectives of the earlier campaign, Hürtgen presented a shell-shattered face to the weary men of the 8th Division who had battled for the town. Turning south, the division moved on to take 2 more towns, Brandenburg and Bergstein, and then they proceeded to mop up the remaining German positions between them and the Roer River. At last, these troops had a chance to relax. They had succeeded in clearing the Hürtgen Forest, and by 8th December had established one sector of the First Army front along the west bank of the Ruhr. Troop replacements were effected during the first week in December when the First Army paused before completing the drive. The 9th Infantry Division, fresh from a rest center in Belgium, moved up. It was on its way to relieve the battle-worn 1st Infantry Division, which had been in continuous action since the drive began. As the convoys passed each other, the 9th moved forward to take up positions at the front. Relief and relocations were also taking place in other areas during this brief lull in the fighting, as the First Army gathered the strength needed for its final leap to the Roer River. One thrust of the new drive was launched early on 10th December from this town, Lückeburg, which had been hotly contested. Attacking through Inden, we began to close in on Peer. On 12th December, after days of stubborn resistance, Peer showed the effects of the battle for its possession. The 104th Division moved on to wipe out German resistance along the west bank of the Ruhr north of Düren. At the same time, the 3rd Armored Division pushed through another string of German towns defending Düren, separating the First Army from the Ruhr in this area. It opened the attack on 10th December by shelling Schlich, one of the remaining strong points west of Düren. Men of the newly arrived 9th Infantry Division went into action in close coordination with the 3rd Armored Division. Objectives in Schlick are visible in the distance. Following the artillery barrage, armor and men moved forward with a new piece of equipment, a rotary mine exploder. While the column pressed doggedly onward, infantrymen rounded up some of the enemy whom they found hidden along the path of advance. Up ahead, our men had to dig for what shelter they could find. The lead tank had been hit. The fire spreading caused a series of explosions. Meanwhile, gunners at closer range continued the attack, pouring in a steady stream of fire until late in the day when the ceasefire order was given. Resistance in Schlick was quelled. The following day, 11th December, those defenders who had survived were assembled for questioning and inspection. The next objective, the strongly defended town of Geik, was already aflame from German and American shell fire when the 3rd Armored Division bore down upon it. Men and guns moved out first. A smoke screen was thrown up to cover the movement as the heavy armor swung into line. As the men entered the town, they found it wrecked and empty of human life. In other parts of the town, the fires burned on unchecked. They gave concrete evidence that the 3rd Armored Division had cleared the enemy from still one more section along the 1st Army front. Simultaneously, from the fringes of the Hürtgen Forest, the last of the 3 final drives got underway. Armor moved up and forward to strengthen and broaden the attack. Infantry of the 83rd Division, recently brought up to the line, were marching toward the last objective in this campaign, a suburb of Düren. By 13th December, we were driving the enemy ahead of us, pinning their backs to the river. The attack to clear the town, Gürzenich, began the same day. Our infantry was alert to sniper fire from the enemy, hidden and protected. In some parts of the town, resistance was so great that it was necessary to blast the Germans out of concealment, and to hunt them out individually, both inside the city and on the outskirts. Among those taken prisoner were a number of women who had been collaborating with German soldiers. As our men rounded up the remnants of the fanatic forces defending the Ruhr, they were bringing to a successful finish the tough campaign launched a month earlier from Aachen. The First Army had won through to its objective and stood ready to pursue the foe in the next phase of the offensive into the heart of Germany.